yesterday was a wild day in U.S. politics. There's so much nuance and different components to break down in this whole conversation. And I don't want to just jumble them all into one video because I don't think I'll be able to be as nuanced as I want. So I'm going to try to break it down into separate videos. This video I'm doing is specifically about the actions. What objectively did these Trump supporters do in the Capitol that has sparked all this outrage? So I'm going to talk about that in this video. Then I'm going to do another video about what Trump and the Republicans have done to incite this. And then I'll also do another video where I talk about the media coverage of everything that happened yesterday. So just a quick, brief summary of why they were even there yesterday, and I'll get more into that in another video. But just so there's some context here, they went to the Capitol because Congress was it was a ceremonial event where they do a ceremonial count for the Electoral College. Now, the Electoral College already met, they already certified the results weeks before. This is just ceremonial. And there were some Republican politicians who were going to object to the certification of these results. And Trump wanted his supporters outside of the Capitol to protest and show support for these Republican politicians who are going to do this silly protest or objection to the results. Now, all this means nothing because the results have already been certified and Joe Biden's going to be the next president of the United States. Now, let's get to the actions, the specific actions. Let's talk about what they did at the Capitol. First is the property damage. Second is they breached decorum. They violated the norms. The next one is they scared politicians. They made politicians afraid. They made politicians uncomfortable. That's what these Trump supporters did at the Capitol that got everybody so upset. And there are some people who are feigning outrage and pretending like they care so much about the 4 people who died at the Capitol yesterday, and which is a sad thing, but that's not what all this outrage is about. And some context to that, as far as I know, the Trump supporters did not kill anybody in the Capitol yesterday. The 2 deaths that I know the details of was a woman who was unarmed and killed by the police, and somebody who had a taser, shocked themselves, and had a heart attack and died. I don't know how the other 2 people died, but I'm sure that the Trump supporters didn't kill them because that would be headlines everywhere. So I don't believe that people are this outraged about 4 people dying at the Capitol, especially considering the fact that 10,000 people have died unnecessarily, died entirely in avoidable deaths from COVID this week. And we all have just accepted this mass amount of death and don't even bat an eyelash to it anymore. So I'm finding very hard to believe that people are this outraged over 4 Trump supporters dying at the Capitol yesterday. Like I said, what I really think people are outraged about were the things I listed earlier: the property damage, the violating the norms, breaching decorum, and they made politicians scared. And I really think that it's important for me I want to have this conversation about the specific actions, the objective actions of what these Trump supporters did at the Capitol yesterday. I think it's important to have this conversation because almost unanimously, everybody has just agreed that this is terrorism, this is sedition, this is insurrection. And that's what people are classifying or defining what happened at the Capitol yesterday as. I'm hesitant to say that this is terrorism, this is sedition, this is insurrection, Because when you look at what they objectively did yesterday at the Capitol, the property damage, making politicians uncomfortable, scaring politicians, and violating the norms, that is literally the definition of direct action. Direct action isn't just holding up signs and marching in a single file line down the street and screaming into a megaphone. That's not the only definition of direct action. It is there is a range, there's a spectrum. It can go from that all the way up to property damage and shutting down critical infrastructure. Look at direct actions in other countries. The left lionizes and admires how effective the French are at direct action and how their pressure campaigns actually work, and they make their government listen to them, and they make their government be more responsive to them when they take to the streets. The French aren't just holding up signs in single file, marching down the street, screaming in megaphones. That's some part of their direct action, but it's mixed in with things like property damage. How many times have we seen protests in France where inevitably they're going to fuck shit up? They're going to be burning down cars. They're going to set buildings on fires. I remember there was a story about how some protesters set the central bank on fire in France. They set the central bank on fire. Yes, there are different lines. Everybody has their different lines of what they feel comfortable with in direct actions. But breaking windows, I think that's on the very mild side of direct actions. And so for the left to just basically, a lot of people on the left, definitely in new media, to just automatically classify that type of action as terrorism and sedition and insurrection, you should be careful, because you're setting yourself up. Because when the left engages in direct action and somebody breaks a window, well, when the establishment and the right wing tries to classify us all, everybody, as terrorists and insurrectionists and seditionists, just know you kind of co-sign onto that logic. And we all know that once you're classified as a terrorist in this country, basically give the government license to do whatever they want. From kidnapping and disappearances, torture, and extrajudicial killings. So I think people need to be very careful with classifying people who were trespassing and broke windows at the Capitol as terrorists. You can say they're criminals. Trespassing is a crime. Property damage is a crime. You can say they're criminals, but to classify that as terrorism, I think people need to be very careful with that. So I think the property damage and the trespassing are a big part of the discussion. Now, there are other components to why people were so outraged, like the making politicians afraid, scaring politicians. Again, this is just objectively what they did, what these Trump supporters did, that has drew this much ire across the country today. Part of it was the property damage. Another part of it was that they scared politicians. Again, this kind of ties into the direct action point that I was making before. When you do direct action, part of the reason why that pressure campaign works is because the politicians feel a little afraid. They feel a little scared and they feel uncomfortable. That's why they make the decision, okay, let me meet their demands to take the pressure off, because I'm uncomfortable with where this is going right now. So that's a whole part of the direct action and public pressure campaign, to make politicians uncomfortable. And admitted, nobody has done it like this before, but still it's the same kind of principle applies. These Trump supporters, they weren't pointing guns at politicians. They weren't threatening to kill politicians or kidnap them or hold them hostage. Now, of course, the context matters, because when the Trump supporters were outside, were making politicians scared at the Capitol yesterday, it was for some stupid bullshit delusional ass reason. So you can definitely criticize them for being dumb. Okay. But are we really going to act like making politicians scared is that is crossing the line, good sir. Like, come on. And especially given the context for where we are right now. What's going on in this country right now? Worst economic crisis in history and a raging deadly pandemic that's out of control. This is a failed state. The government has failed to do their most basic job and provide assistance during the worst emergency in U.S. history. They have failed at every single task at every single level. It's weird to me to see so many people, even people on the left, who have been saying for months now that this is a failed state, the government is damn near illegitimate. It's weird for me to see those same people now leap to the defense of politicians because somebody made them scared. Oh my God. Think of the poor politicians. Oh my God. Somebody scared them for a couple hours yesterday. Oh my God. How dare they do such a thing? Like, I don't care really that much if politicians were scared. Again, nobody got hurt. There was no violence against politicians. So all of this hoopla and ire and outrage is because, again, property damage and because somebody scared shitty politicians in a failed state. And another point on the whole failed state point, and this kind of leads into the whole other part of the outrage that people are getting, which is that this violates the norms, sir. So there's pearl clutching coming from everywhere, coming from regular people online, regular people, in the country. Definitely the pearl clutching in media is on a fucking 15 out of 10. It's 15 out of a scale of 10. Because I just find it weird how obsessed people are with decorums and the norms while we are living in a failed state. People are literally out here, oh my God, I can't believe they did this. They desecrated the Capitol. We've never seen such a thing in the Capitol since 1812. Oh my God, the Capitol was under siege. People broke windows at the Capitol. Oh my God. People haven't broke windows at the Capitol since 1812. I cannot believe this. Like, okay, somebody broke windows at the Capitol, again, in a failed state where that same government is about to let 40 million people get kicked out of their houses, be evicted, and be put on the street. That same government has the power to stop that, and they're not. That same government has allowed 60 million people to lose their job, lose their income, and then that same government won't provide assistance to those people in the worst emergency in U.S. history. And I'm supposed to be clutching my pearls because somebody broke windows at the Capitol. People should be spray painting and breaking windows at the Capitol every fucking day because the government is illegitimate at this point. The government is illegitimate at this point. So I can't get behind all the pearl clutching around it. I just can't. And there's some people, regular people, like I said, it's not just the elites who are clutching their pearls, but there are regular people who are pearl clutching over this. Now, I'm not going to really speak to the regular people who are pearl clutching over the breaching decorum and violating the norms. But I will speak to the media elites and just the regular political elites who are so outraged by this. They are insulted that anybody would ever make them uncomfortable and would ever make them afraid. They're used to living like elites. They're used to having everything, being in control of everything, and everything going their way. They're doing fine financially. They all have homes. They all have healthcare, and even during this crisis, while the government shit the bed and proven that this is a failed state, they're doing just fine. So for somebody to come and shatter the bubble that they're all in and to make them uncomfortable, even if it was just for a moment, they view that as beyond the pale. They view that as, they think that was worse than the government sitting idly by and letting almost 400,000 people die of a pandemic. I guarantee you, all the people on media, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, who are damn near fucking crying since yesterday over this, I guarantee you, they think that is a bigger affront to democracy than when the government did a fucking corporate scam, a heist, the CARES Act, during an emergency, and they let the rich run out the back door with all the money and left everybody else for dead. I guarantee you, everybody on CNN thinks what the Trump supporters did yesterday is even worse than what the government did with the CARES Act. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. So how would I classify what happened yesterday? No, first let me push back against the classification that this is a coup. I think that in some aspects there's an argument that can be made that this was a coup. There's some purely by their intent, not their actions, but their intent. And again, like I said, there's an argument to be made there, but I wouldn't classify this as a coup because for this reason, for several reasons. If we're going to classify something as a coup just by the intent of wanting to override an election so that another politician could be president, if we're going to classify that as a coup, so then was it a coup when all the Democrats and Hillary supporters protesting against Trump and the election results and trying to say that they were invalid because something Russiagate and the Russians stole the election, therefore Donald Trump isn't a legitimate president? Was that a coup attempt? Because their intent was, this person, we need to make sure that this person is not president. We need to remove this person from being president. That was their intent. So if we're just calling something a coup by intent, you can, anytime somebody contests an election or protest the results of an election, we can say it's a coup because you guys are trying to undermine democracy and you're trying to overrule an election. Now, I wouldn't say that because the actions matter. And if they were doing a coup yesterday, I guarantee you it would have been a lot uglier, especially Trump supporters, and you know they love their guns. If they were trying to do a coup at the Capitol yesterday, and we all saw how shitty the security was, and I'll do a whole other video about that. We all saw how shitty the security was. If they wanted to do a coup, a violent coup, and kill politicians, or hold politicians hostage, or kidnap politicians, and make it so that Donald Trump stays in the White House, if that's what they were doing, they would have carried out that plan. But instead, they were just being rowdy, doing property damage and trespassing. That's not a coup. So I would personally classify this as some form of direct action / riot. And it's not me saying that all direct actions are equally valid. I think this is stupid. I think their intent behind it was stupid. I think the whole basis of this, that Donald Trump didn't lose the election and we have to take a stand here, I think that's delusional. But if they were just out there in signs, holding up signs saying Trump won, Joe Biden stole the election, if they were just doing that and they were standing in the street and they didn't really do anything else, there was no property damage or anything like that, that would be a protest, wouldn't it? We would call that a protest. It'd be a stupid protest, a protest for a stupid reason, but it's still a protest. And the fact that they did all these other things makes it a direct action. It's a direct action for a stupid reason, but it's still a direct action. So I think people need to take a step back and take a breath and actually look at what happened yesterday and judge it on its merits, not what you think could have happened. And just keep everything in context. because a lot of people right now looking at mainstream media and they are fucking hyperventilating. They are going to have a conniption fit over this till the end of fucking time. But they are known for, mainstream media is known for doing propaganda and inflaming tensions in this country. So don't let them do that. Don't let them inflame and exacerbate the situation by saying this is terrorism, this is sedition, and then everybody just jumps on board with it. If you believe that, judge it by its own merits and make a coherent argument why you think it is, because like I explained in this video, I just don't think it falls into those categories. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section.